Alright, what's good everyone? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be doing a multitasking comparison between the Z Fold 6 and the Honor Magic V3. So let's get into it. Let's start on the outside screen. So the Z Fold 6 and the Honor Magic V3 can obviously do a basic split screen. With both of them, you can use some gestures to get into your split screen. So you can, on the V3, swipe and hold left. Then you can choose any app on your home screen to do a split screen. So boom, now you have two Google Chromes open. And then on the Z Fold 6, you can swipe from the bottom with two fingers and choose any app on your phone. So you can search, you can see your app drawer, and then also have recent apps. So let's just choose Google Chrome again, and boom, now two Google Chromes on both of them. And then on a regular Android phone, you swipe up to the task switcher, tap the icon, and do split screen like that. Then you can only choose from apps that are already open. So that's kind of inconvenient, but there you go. All right, and then while you're in split screen, so with the Honor Magic V3, you have a good amount of adjustment points for the split screen when you're in vertical orientation, so it's not bad at all. It gives you a decent amount of options for, layouts that you want. But on the Z Fold 6, you have even more. So I can go bomb, bomb, bomb. You can go all the way until this tiny little box. And you might be thinking, like, why would you want to do that? But I'm going to show you later on. And then on both of them, you have the ability to swap your split screen very quickly. So swap to the bottom. Then you can also save these apps as app pairs. Of Honor Magic V3, for some reason you can't save Google Chrome and Google Chrome as an app pair. But on the Z Fold 6, you can definitely do that to your home screen, to your edge panel, and on the inside screen, you can save it to your taskbar. And then when you're in horizontal split screen, the Z Fold 6 has even more options than the others. So you can two finger swipe from either side to open a split screen on that specific side. So left side, it will open on the left side, and then you can choose any app as you saw before. But then you even have more adjustment increments in the other phones, like even more than before. A lot of other Android phones, for some reason, when you split screen in horizontal, they don't give you any adjustment points. You only have the normal split screen size, the half and half. But on the Z Fold 6 and other Samsung devices, you can go all the way up until this little box right here, this little rectangle. You have even more freedom. Despite this screen being smaller than the other one, you still have more control and more abilities to do more things on the Z Fold 6. So that is really cool. And I'll show you what I mean. On the V3, you see how it automatically switched to a 50-50 split. You cannot do anything other than that when you're in horizontal. So that is kind of whack. Like, for example, if you're playing a game and you want to have like YouTube on the side, very small, or Reddit on the side, you can't do that on the V3. Yeah, I know that's a niche use case. That's something that I actually do, even on the other displays. But it is something to note when it comes to multitasking. On regular Android devices like a Pixel or the Nothing phone, again, horizontal is limited. You can only have one size. And then when you're in vertical, you do have a bit of options, but not too much really. And then you can double tap to swap the apps, but you cannot save app pairs. So yeah, now moving further, you have floating windows or pop-up view. All these phones can enter them into different ways and similar ways. So on the Nothing phones, you can swipe and hold to enter into a floating window. I actually like that way of doing it because it's very fast and quick. And then you have control over your floating window. You can adjust the size. And then there's a different mode where it's off to the side like that, or it's tiny and it snaps to the sides of the screen. So that is really cool. The Honor Magic V3 is very similar to that as well. So you swipe and hold and up to the right, then you enter into a floating window with the app, and you can obviously move it around, expand it if you want. You can resize it to whatever size. You can also put it off to the side, so it's a little icon. Tap it to bring it back. And then you can make it tiny as well to snap to the screen, so it's not just in your way. And then you also have the ability to open more than one floating window on the Honor Magic V3, but you cannot do that on the outside screen. So you can only have one at a time. But there is this cool menu when you have more than one floating window or more than two on the inside screen, where you can basically quickly swap between your floating windows. So that is not bad at all. I think that's pretty good multitasking if you ask me. But Samsung's gives you a little bit more freedom. So on the Samsung devices, you can swipe from the top right to turn any app into a floating window, and then the apps aspect ratio are not stuck to the default, so you can actually resize your floating windows to whatever you want. And then you also have the ability to have up to 5 floating windows at a time in addition to your split screen session as well. So on the Nothing phone, you can have 2 apps in split screen and then 1 floating window. On the Honor Magic V3, you can have 2 apps in split screen and then up to 2 floating windows on the inside screen. You're maxing out at 4 apps here, 3 apps here. On the Samsung, you're maxing out at like 8 apps on the inside screen. And then on the outside screen, you're maxing out at 7 apps. Like, you can literally just go mod on the outside screen. So even though the Z Fold 6 has a smaller screen, it is still more functional because of the software and all the freedom and flexibility that you have, the different things you can do. The way that Samsung handles, tossing your floating windows off to the side is different. So you can see like a little preview of them, and then you can touch them to bring them back in, toss them back, and you can bring in all of them if you want, of course. And then also with floating windows, you have a little bit more control in terms of like reachability. So if you press this, then you increase the bar size, so it makes it a little bit easier to grab your floating windows. Then you can also adjust the transparency. So if you go here, then boom, now you can make your floating windows transparent. You can see through them so that you're not like fully covering whatever you're doing in the background. So that's really cool for just like different workflows. And then in addition to that, Samsung devices have the ability to make sure that your floating windows never close if you swipe up and go home. Whereas on the other ones, and you swipe up, the app will get minimized to there. So that's not bad at all. It still leaves the floating windows on the screen, but on the Galaxy devices, if you're somebody who's used to them, you're used to your floating windows turn into this little icon. But if you turn the setting on in Good Lock in Multi-Star, then you will allow your floating windows to stay as they are, even if you swipe up and go home. That's your basic multitasking on the outside screens. So now let's take it to the inside screens. First thing you notice, the V3 has a bigger display than the Z Fold 6. So getting back into the gestures again, if I start in Google Chrome, 2-finger swipe from the bottom, I can enter a top and bottom split screen session with the Z Fold 6. And then in addition to that, you also have now access to the left and right. So 2-finger swipe from the right, I enter into a side-by-side split screen session on the right side. And then if I do it from the left side, same thing, but start an app in the left side. So that is really cool because you can set up your split screen session how you want it to be. And then you also have the edge panel. I have mine set to just tap. So if I just tap an app, it will open into split screen right away. Then if I tap another app, another app. So I have 3 apps in split screen, and then I can rotate them. Just like how I showed on the front screen, you can adjust your apps to exactly how you want them to be sized and whatever aspect ratio and layout. Like, you have so much freedom in terms of that. The flexibility of Samsung's multitasking software is just king to me. And then if you rotate the phone, you have a different layout or a different aspect ratio for more options. So you can have like 1 long app here, 2 horizontal apps. So maybe like a video playing or something like that right here. And then maybe like something else like Reddit. You can adjust the size to make it a little bit longer. There's just so many options because of the increments, the points of adjustment that you have on the Z Fold 6 in terms of your split screen session. So 1, 2, 3 apps, and just a lot of flexibility for what you can do with that. And you can also save the app pairs in those exact orientations. So that's really cool as well. On the V3, you have just dragging and dropping from the taskbar, which you can do that on the Samsung as well. I didn't show that, but that is also an option. Dragging and dropping from the taskbar. And then you also have a sort of edge panel that you can do the same thing. The V3 is only limited to 2 apps in split screen. You can do a horizontal split as well if you enable that in settings. And you can also force all apps to work in split screen or floating windows. So that's really nice. The adjustment points are there, but not as much as the Z Fold 6. But you still got a lot of options compared to other foldable phones. And notice how it takes up the whole screen. That is really nice as well. On the Z Fold 6, when you first get your phone and you do a split screen session, it's not going to look like this. It's not going to take up the whole screen by default. In order to do that, you got to go into settings. So I open up settings in floating window, and I'm just going to go to split screen. So full screen in split screen view. So when you turn that on, this will allow you to have a full screen session. But if you turn it off, this is how your Z Fold 6 will do split screen. You will have the taskbar and you have your notification bar at the top, and it's just going to be a smaller split screen session or split screen experience compared to other phones, especially when you're in vertical. Like, there's just a lot of space that's not being used. But when you enable this setting, boom, it's so much more immersive and comparable to the V3. If I go back to vertical with the V3, you can see how comparable it is. Obviously, the V3 is going to be slightly bigger. And if I rotate the phones, you'll see what they look like in this orientation. More comparable for the Z Fold 6 because it's a little bit longer. And so the horizontal split will be, almost as wide as the V3. A very comparable experience when it's just like 2 apps on the screen at once. And then going back to floating windows with the V3, you can drag and drop from your taskbar to enter into floating windows. And you can have 2 floating windows on the inside screen. The phone just crashed and the icon's still on the screen. So that's just a testament to, the optimization of Samsung software. But if I get back into a split screen real quick, so that's 2 apps in split screen, then a floating window. another floating window. I got my 2 floating windows and my 2 apps in the background and my split screen session. So pretty cool multitasking on the Honor Magic V3. And then like I said, with the floating window menu here, you can easily tap between your floating windows, even if you have more than 2 open. So that is nice. On the Z Fold 6, again, you can have up to 3 apps in split screen. You can grab apps from your edge panel to go into a floating window as well by dragging them to the middle. So I can have up to 5 floating windows. You can grab from your taskbar as well. That's 2 notes apps, by the way. Samsung phones allow you to have multiple sessions or multiple windows with, different apps like the Files app, the Notes app, etc. I'm going to test that on the V3 just now. But boom, now I have 5 floating windows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And just like how I showed you on the outside screen, you can adjust them to literally any size and aspect ratio, and the apps will adjust dynamically. Not every app is super compatible, so they might not work as well or adjust as well. But generally, most apps that I've used that are not games work 100% fine with adjusting your floating window size and aspect ratio. So that's nice. Really good capabilities for both of them. And now when it comes to the taskbar, the V3, the taskbar is just gone. It doesn't show up all the time, but you can swipe a little bit and see it. And then you can choose app and switch between your apps like that. But it's not going to be there all the time, and you can't make it stay there. You also have your app drawer easily accessible right there. And then you have recent apps. So 2 recent apps. On the Z Fold 6, you have your taskbar, and you can literally just just switch through all the apps very quickly because it's always there. Then you have your app drawer. This is how I organize mine with folders. And then you can have up to 4 recent apps on your Z Fold 6 taskbar. So that's really cool. Let's say you don't want the taskbar to be there all the time. You can set it so that if you tap and hold, it will disappear. So let me actually go to that. So you can actually turn it off completely if you don't want it, but you can set it to show up to 4 recent apps. You can lower the number. You can show and hide with the tap and hold. So if I touch and hold, it will disappear, and then it gives you more space on the screen. But if I touch and hold that same spot, it will bring it back. So you have that flexibility. And then with the full screen option, like I showed you before, as soon as I enter split screen, my taskbar is gone because I'm using all of my screen. But then if I go back to single screen, then it comes back. So I like that flexibility and customization. The V3, the taskbar is just not there anymore. So that's how the taskbars work, and that's how the multitasking works on both these devices. These are beasts when it comes to multitasking. You do have desktop modes on both of them. So you have Samsung Dex, and then you have the Honor. Both their desktop modes are good. They have a taskbar at the bottom. You can open up many floating windows, apps and windows, and resize them how you want, etc. So now let's see if the Honor Magic V3 can do multiple instances of different apps. So you already saw Google Chrome, but actually let's see how many instances. So we have 1. Then if I go into a split screen, there's another 1. Then if I do a floating window, you can't do a floating window with Chrome if it's already open on your foreground. So that's unfortunate. And now let's see folders. So if I drag and drop a folder, it says that you can only open this app in 1 window. So that's unfortunate. Now let's see notes. So grab notes. And you can have multiple notes open. So that is really cool. How many can you do? You can do 3 instances. Let's see if I can do 4 instances. So basically unlimited, just like Samsung's. So that is nice that you can do multiple notes, because you might be working on multiple notes at a time. And especially with the pen, really good stylus, the Honor Magic Pen. That is nice to have that option of multiple notes open at once. The settings app on the Honor Magic V3, and honestly the other foldable phones, they just don't allow you to manipulate the settings app that much. Whereas on the Samsung Galaxy, literally any app will work in split screen or floating window. So like settings app in a split screen, I can grab it from here and put it into a floating window, and I can manipulate the size and stuff like that. This is the settings app. And on the V3, you just can't do that. So literally every app works in split screen, floating window. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it when you're talking about multitasking versus these 2 devices. Both of them, I think, are leading the charge in terms of the features, the multitasking, and all that stuff. But I think Samsung just holds the edge with the flexibility and the refined experience. The V3 does have cool features. Like, I didn't really mention this, but you have the Magic Portal where you can grab a video or image, drag it off to the side, and you can drop it in different apps. And when you choose an app, it will open that app into a floating window, and you can start working there. So that is a cool feature. It's definitely something unique, and it also has this floating window panel like I showed you. I do think Samsung's experience is just more refined, and you have so many options that I didn't mention on Samsung as well. Like the way that I have my Z Fold 6 set up is if I swipe and hold up, just like that, I can enter it to a split screen without even having to use 2 fingers. So this is good, because on the outside screen, I don't even have to use the edge panel. I can just bomb. I'm in a split screen session just like that. Very quick, very easy. And then you can basically customize any swipe in the 3 directions. You can also customize the short swipes and the long swipes individually. So you have 6 different shortcuts that you can customize on your Z Fold 6 in terms of just basic navigation. And it's just amazing. So this is another menu right here where it shows me recent apps and then also apps that I save here, and I can tap and hold, split screen or floating window, and it just works really well. Very, very quick, very easy because of the flexibility and the customization that Samsung offers on their devices. And then of course the edge panel is something I use a lot for a quick split screen, but also just accessing key apps very quickly on the outer display where there is no taskbar. And even on the inside, I do use the edge panel a lot as well. But yeah, I just have so many options here. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on these 2 amazing foldable phones and their multitasking capabilities. Which one do you like the best? They are different. They do offer the same features, but in different ways. So which one do you prefer more? And what are your thoughts on this video? So until the next video, we're out. Peace.